If you've been with us for the past few weeks, you know that we've been talking about the Ten Commandments. And if you grew up anything like me, maybe you've seen the Ten Commandments in a whole new light so far. And we've learned that it's not about bad people doing right to keep a good God happy. In other words, you don't become a Christian just because you keep a bunch of rules. And we also learned that God wants to be at the center of our life because our hearts and our lives have been designed with Him being at the center. Last week, we learned what it means to misuse the name of God. We really learned that all of us tend to do that the majority of the time. Last week was kind of heavy. I mean, none of us would really say that we are people who misuse the name of God, but the truth is, all of us use the name of God to dodge the will of God, and because of that, we've all missed out on God at some point completely. Now, if you're reading through the Ten Commandments, you really start to see a pattern. You start to see about how the first 5 are vital to our relationship with God, and really, you see what is important to God. So if you keep reading from "Don't misuse my name," you'll come across "Thou shalt take a day off." Why in the world would God include a commandment that said take a rest? I mean, really, God, is it that important that I rest? Is that important to you? It doesn't really make any sense to me, at least, why it's so important that I take a rest, that God would put that in the Ten Commandments. But the trick is, you have to know who He was talking to and why He said what He said. Check this out. God says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work." So here's the story. God is giving these commandments to Moses. Moses is leading this group of about a couple million people through a journey in the desert. And sure, when they left Egypt, they were able to take some food with them, but really, that ran out kind of quickly. So even before the commandments were given, God started providing manna. So what's manna? Manna was this bread-like substance that fell from the sky. Every morning it would fall from the sky, and the people were to go out and gather enough just for that day. Key word being just for that day, because if you got any extra, they would get worms in it and mold and ruin, but a new batch would fall every single morning. For real, I'm not making this up. This is serious. So get this picture. God says to these people who are walking through the desert, basically homeless, these people that are following one guy, these millions of people that are following one guy who's following God, and nobody really knows where they're going. These people that only have enough food for one day. He says to these people, "Hey, why don't you rest and take a day off?" And they're like, "What? How am I supposed to live? I can't even gather manna." It's like, "God, what do you want them to do? You're going to have to intervene." And that's exactly what God wants. See, God knows that if we take a day of rest, if we take time off, it will remind us of where we really get everything from. The tendency for all of us is to not even pay attention. So God knew that unless He got us to zoom out from our lives and see the big picture, we would probably live our lives without seeing God at all. So God says, take a day off, a whole day. Just take it. And see, that's huge for us, because even on our days off, we don't take days off. We have Facebook or whatever drama we're in right now, or sports, that kind of stuff, hobbies. We don't take days off. But God says, really, from everything, take a day off, rest, and remember who gave you everything that you have. Now, in order to do that and still be successful in sports and relationships and work and hobbies and all that stuff, you have to put in the time before your day of rest. But when we stop and acknowledge how God has cared for us and our world, we realize who's really in control. And that is what God has wanted all along.